The United States cannot win a war against Iran. And here are the reasons why. Understandably, the United States is the most powerful military in the world, and it still is. I mean, no country compares to a nation with a $3 trillion budget. That's a massive military. But spending power does not equate ability to win a war. They're two different things. And also, strong does not mean the best. So, we should know this. Here are the reasons why the United States cannot, even being the most powerful military in the world, it cannot win a war against Iran. The first is outdated war machines and strategy. Strategy. The United States has been a dominant power since after the World War. And what happened to many military is happening to it right now. Where the you know when the point of development comes to a certain peak, and especially when you remain at that peak for a certain amount of time, the tendency to go past that growth is sometimes difficult. I think we see that oftentimes in the scale in a graph of growth where when a growth appears somewhere, it remains there until something happens, it comes down. Maybe if it hits bottom, then it may have the opportunity to rise again. But right now, the US is at this point, is at the peak. Its ability to grow is not very much promising until maybe something really happened, right? Good. So, the first reason that the US cannot win a war against Iran is because it has an outdated war machine and strategy. Aircraft carrier and the whole organization of aircraft in a war scenario itself is a thing past. It has passed its use. Aircraft carrier were useful when you have pretty much a conventional warfare. Other nations or adversaries have the same similar kinds of equipment, so you go head on with them. It's a fight against bull versus bull. That kind of scenario, the strongest always win, right? But aircraft carrier are no more, they're vulnerable in modern warfare. Modern warfare are warfare of missiles. They're warfare of missiles. And hypersonic, which the United States is largely lacking. The US is lacking in this technology right now. Okay. And also, your machinery is determines your strategy. It moves a large number of troops, 5,000 within an aircraft carrier. Several dozens of aircraft, 70 aircraft on it. Someone just need to hide somewhere behind the mountains and shoot a missile with precision and strike at this aircraft. Even if it may not sink the aircraft carrier, the likelihood that this aircraft carrier is going to be put out of service is very, very, very high. is very high. Now, another reason, so the strategy for which the United States is executing war in this age, in the 21st century, is outdated because its war machines upon which these strategies are built are outdated. Another reason why the United States cannot win a war against adversary is industrial capacity. Once upon a time, the United States was a major production power of the world. But even at the peak of its productivity, it cannot produce as much missiles, tactical missiles. I call that tactical missiles. It has very limited amount of it. Some of its functional missiles are the Tomahawk missiles. Tomahawk missiles, I think the entire inventory of the Tomahawk missiles is between 2,000 to 2,500. In the age of missile warfare, shooting a couple of hundreds, 200s, and more in thousands, these missiles will be exhausted faster than they are produced. And the ability of the US industrial capacity to replenish these missiles as quickly as possible is very much limited. So, this is another reason that limits the United States military and war machine and strategy in winning a war against Iran. Because Iran has a higher capacity to produce more missiles and faster than the United States can. We're not talking about the quality of missiles because no matter how technological advanced a missile may be, there are chances that some may fail. Let's say the US fires out about 100. The chances are that a near 50% of those would miss their target or may, even after hitting, may fail to explode. We've seen a lot of this have happened in previous scenarios. In previous conflict places where adversaries get hold of unexploded Tomahawk and go on to reverse engineer them. Now, these are two reasons. We have more. We have more reasons why the USA cannot win a war against Iran. We've seen outdated war machines and strategies. Now, let's see. We've seen industrial capacity. Another reason why the US cannot win a war against Iran is morale. Morale. The United States military is built in a way where it cannot accommodate much losses. Personal loss. The United States military cannot tolerate higher casualty of its personnel. It cannot. So that's why most of the time you get to see the US junking into short wars, and they play pretty much safe in all wars. There's never been a time where it goes all out against a strong adversary. An adversary that can actually hit back really strongly There's never been a scenario such for the United States. And that's very important. So the United States are quite good in short wars and quick victories, not for extended wars. As soon as the war gets prolonged, its missiles start depleting more than its industrial capacity to replenish them. Casualties, casualties start rising, and morale will start dropping. And this brings us to another very important point why the US, the United States, cannot win a war against Iran. It brings us to another point costs. Part of war strategies must involve the amount you're spending to execute the war. The United States strategy and machineries, as well as its personnel, go a massive, a massive amount of its budget. Every single day that the United States would be, its navy would be at sea to confront an adversary, it would spend much more than that adversary would spend in attacking it or defending against it. Talk about fuel cost, the cost of fuel, that is, the cost to keep its aircraft in the air, logistics, maintenance, all these are massive. It takes a lot. And the cost alone will make the US to continue any long war. So cost is a factor. The US cannot, however rich it is, there's always a limit of the amount it can tolerate for a war. And when it starts going beyond that threshold, it starts having a toll. It starts taking toll on its economy. On its economy. And that brings us to another point why it is close to impossible for the United States to win any war against Iran. I mean, a real kinetic war. Politics. Another point is politics. So, with the United States military strategy, given its whole war machine upon which that strategy is built on, coupled with its industrial capacity to produce the necessary tools and equipment that its personnel would need, and then the morale of its troops that start declining as the war advances and casualties start climbing, and the whole cost that all of these would have to consume in order to keep the US military in battle for as much long as possible as it could be, all these start taking toll on the politics of the USA. The US politics is not built, it's not a politics that supports a long-term war. Why? Because as soon as more body bags start coming into the country, of course, no matter how censored the number of casualties may want to be shown out there, the families would somehow still find a way to protest against the continuous killing of it, of the children of the patriots whom are on the front line. So pressure would mount from within the USA and upon its government, and that would pressure any government in the USA to discontinue such war. So with all these, the US cannot in any way effectively confront an enemy beyond, let's say, a max of consistently for 4 weeks. It will be difficult. And if an adversary has the ability to keep up confronting the USA in a war for more than 4 weeks, then it's likely to start seeing cracks within the US military. As the day goes by, the odds go against the United States, unless it opts to quickly bring that war to an end and decide to use its nuclear arsenal upon Iran. That's the only possibility that can quickly bring that war to an end, as well as give the United States a victory, like it happened with the Japanese. Right? Good. Now, these are the reasons why. And Iran seemed to have effectively studied these problems of the US military, and it built upon them. It managed it managed this by not, even though it does not have the resource to invest in these machineries, which of course have limited use in modern day war, it opts for much cheaper war strategies, which are the missiles. So instead of having an aircraft that would need to travel or fly from one point to another with a huge cost on fuel, on maintenance, on personnel, and with limited capacity to operate at max. An aircraft carrier, let's give it, okay, we want to extend its range. It cannot continue to fly for a maximum of 10 hours. It will have to somehow go in for maintenance, maybe after several hours of operation. It will go back to base or back to on an aircraft carrier to get some maintenance done, and the pilot would need to rest. So Iran had removed all of these problems by simply, it can just set up a missile launch somewhere behind the mountains and shoot them, launch them to their destination. So instead of the cost of on all of this, Iran invests more in precision. In precision. So Iran invests more in precision. That means over the years, it has continued to improve the precision of its missiles, investing in satellites and cyber warfare technology. So this allows its missile to be more accurate without the need of having to look into investing into some massive kind of uh, a piece of equipment that would really, really pose a great deal of challenge like the US is having right now. It has a lot of air bases around Iran for the reason that it needs places where these aircraft would land. And there are politics within those nations where they tell them, okay, we don't want you to use our soil to attack Iran because we may have retaliation upon our country, and that would affect our economy and politics within the country. So that's a challenge for the United States that comes with having the kind of conventional, uh, outdated warfare technology that the United States is having and using to execute a war. So, yes, Iran is a very powerful nation. It's a superpower within the Middle East, and it has effectively developed its defense capabilities as well as its offensive capabilities. So the US military, however strong and powerful it is, odds in the modern affairs, in the modern war scenario that we are having today, it does not favor the US military. Maybe back in the days in the 90s where it effectively can confront an adversary without the fear of an adversary being able to strike back from a very far distance. But those capabilities exist today, and it definitely pose a great deal of challenge to the United States military. And another thing that Iran did really well is drones. Thousands of drones. Iran made production of those drones in massive amounts, and those can really cause a great deal of confusion in a battlefield scenario when hundreds of them are sent at a time. Uh, most air defenses would concentrate in trying to defend against those drones, wasting, yes, wasting its air defenses for more serious missiles coming. And in a short while, uh, the US that originally should be on attack would now become on the defensive because it wastes a lot of its air missiles, and now it would have to be facing serious bashing after most of its missiles defenses are exhausted. And the ability to replace those missiles again still bring us back to the industrial capacity of the USA is limited as well. So you cannot spend faster than it is being produced. That's a very serious problem for the US military. So the US military cannot win a war against Iran. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, be sure to subscribe and see you in my next video.